Hello guys, and welcome to the Historical Podcast with me, Michael from Clans&Dynasties. Today I'm going to talk about the image of Thomas Lee in Irish dress, painted by Marcus Gerhardt the Younger in 1594. And really to raise the question, why would an English army captain from the English lower gentry be painted as an Irish Kern? So a little bit about the man leading up to the painting in 1594, and a little bit about the painter. Thomas Lee was born in Bigging Hall in Buckinghamshire in England, and he was the cousin of Sir Henry Lee of Ditchley, who was the Queen's champion and Master of Armories for Queen Elizabeth I. The Lee family will appear on my channel with their own video. Their history is far too much to be covered in liaison with this video here today. So Thomas Lee was an English army captain, and he's spent most of his career in Ireland during the Tudor conquest of Ireland. He probably arrived in around 1574 with Walter Devereux, the first Earl of Essex. With that, his first appointment became the Constable of Carrickfergus in Ulster. In 1578, though, he married Elizabeth Eustace, widow of John Eustace, maiden name Peppard. And with that marriage, he came into possession of large tracts of land in Kildare, including Castlemartin. Elizabeth would actually work as his translator, because at the time Ireland obviously still spoke Irish as the primary language, and she's actually known as by the English of the time as pure Irish, which is surprising since her name is of Anglo-Norman stock. So the fact that they considered her a pure Irish person like the O'Neills, McCarthys, is very strange indeed. His large tracts of land came the responsibility to maintain the principal dwellings, to use only English language and dress, and to keep in his employ or as tenants only able-bodied Irishmen who were born in the county. He was not allowed to hire any from outside, and he was not allowed to part from any of his lands without the consent of the Lord Deputy of Ireland. Any females born of his line who would marry an Irishman would forfeit her inheritance or dowry. He was given a command of a small troop of Kerns to help maintain a defence against the clans who would threaten the Pale, including the O'Moores, O'Byrnes, the Cavan McMurrows. But actually in 1580 he was charged with highway robbery in Oxfordshire before his release and returned back to Ireland, to be met with accusations of stealing cattle, although a normal pastime for most Irishmen would not be expected of an Englishman of English gentry stock. But that was quashed before it even made its way to court by the Lord Deputy Grey, who actually needed adventurers like Thomas Lee to help his campaign into the areas of Wicklow and Kildare under the Baltinglass Rebellion, or the Eustace Rebellion. The Lord Deputy had actually just suffered a crushing defeat at Glenmalure at the hands of Faye McHugh O'Byrne, and needed troops and soldiers aplenty to replenish his forces. With that, Thomas Lee obviously joined the expedition, and he was highly spoken of and praised by men such as the Principal Secretary of State of Ireland, Fenton, the Anglican Archbishop of Dublin, Loftus, and the Lord Deputy Grey. They spoke very highly of his ability as a soldier and as a man. And with these recommendations, he was actually granted a small force of horse and footmen. He later was then hired. He would come back to England before being hired by John Perrott, who became the new Lord Deputy of Ireland, to help crush the Cavan Rebellion. No doubt his expertise and experience in the lands of the O'Byrnes and in the Wicklow Mountains, it was probably very good for his, to have that experience on board. So in 1591 though, during that campaign, actually, he fell out with the Ormond Butlers by killing a sheriff of theirs. He had 60 men and was attacked by 300, and managed to kill the leader of the opposing force, the sheriff, and win a victory there. But with that, he fell out with the Ormond butlers, or the Duke of Ormond, or the Earl, probably that seat. But either, I digress. He was then in 1591 found himself fleeing his lands and castle in Kildare with the clothes on his back and but a few horses behind him, and he blamed this on Sir Nicholas White, who was a senior judge at the time. Surprisingly, Nicholas White's father actually used to be steward for the Ormond butlers, and this was no doubt some sort of political shenanigans happening there at the time. Lee would make way to go north, and would take part in the campaign against Hugh Maguire under the new Lord Deputy William Fitzwilliam. And following the Battle of Leask, he was highly praised by the likes of Hugh O'Neill for being the first to enter the River Erne. So he basically was famous for leading a large charge. He became friends with people like Hugh O'Neill during this campaign, and he would actually go on to make many friends, many chieftains, from Hugh Maguire, Brian McMahon, the O'Rourke's, and Red Hugh O'Donnell. Lee would also apparently become intimate with O'Neill, whether as a lover or some sort of besotted stooge. Either way, he was very useful to the English government at the time, because he was their go-between between the Earl and the English government, or the government in Dublin as well. Prior to the outbreak of the 9 Years' War, he was instrumental in trying to broker peace between these two factions. Eventually, he would fall folly of the the O'Neill party, and he was beaten with wooden staves and driven from O'Neill's court. Nothing to do with O'Neill. I'm guessing people were just unhappy with the influence he held. And he would make his way to England, and it was around this time that Marcus Gerhardt the Younger would paint this famous painting, which will be here somewhere. He was actually, and he spent most of his time while he was in England trying to stop the English from declaring all-out war in Ireland. Given what we know up to this point, we can gather that his relationship with the Irish, from his wife to friends and possible lover, the fact that he often took complaints of the Irish to Elizabeth, and on the other side to his constant employ by the English governments to deal with Irish rebels, and his letters and pamphlets stating himself as a pragmatic, loyal English servant. This gives us his dual personality as both the colonial oppressor and the ally of Gaelic Ireland. As I stated, it was around this time that Marcus Gerhardt was painting the painting for him. Marcus Gerhardt actually fled the Netherlands that at the time was ruled by Spain, and the governor was the Iron Duke, or the Duke of Alba. And although his mother is known to have stayed in the Netherlands because she was Catholic, and obviously Marcus and his father were Protestant. So actually on the painting itself, the first thing to note about the painting is the lack of English hose or trousers, which men of Thomas Lee's standing in England would be expected to wear at the time. He is obviously bare-legged in the style of the Irish kerns, but he also maintains the frills that the English wore, and this type of fashion was seen as the fashion of civility. There have been many who have pointed out the duality of Lee's nature to be reflected in the duality of the painting. Some reviewers of the painting would say that it would prove some sort of hybrid mix of English and Irish could exist in this image, although I'm sure such arguments are quickly dismantled by the evidence shown with the Anglo-Normans. And this argument would obviously be used as a warning to hybridization of Englishmen in Ireland, as the Anglo-Normans before the Tudors had done, being swallowed by the Irish culture, becoming more Irish than the Irish themselves, and losing what it meant to be English. The fear is something I'm sure many people can relate to, especially in certain areas of UK politics, and the fear of Irish Gaelic or Gaelic culture absorbing their own. But I digress. What we have to understand is Lee would have been in full control of the painting and what was the image he was trying to portray for a man who no doubt wished to advance himself within English politics. No doubt a sense of wolf dressed in sheep's clothing, living amongst the bandits and rebels, gaining their trust, learning their ways, as a way to help advance the English cause in Ireland. I guess that's my theory, is that's what maybe at play here. Actually, Ian Leask does, as on his paper, suggests an element of peacocking is happening. Here Lee, with his, at the time, was wife hunting, and his peacocking or posing by invoking a Gaelic aspect to his virility, he is untamed and even savage, and therefore more appealing. He also notes that there are multiple phallic imagery within the painting. The man was no doubt a good soldier and leader of men, and he would show his capabilities time and time again. I would think this painting was painted to show a virile man, a warrior, who was able to adapt, taking the best qualities of his enemy to use them against them, much like the Romans before him, an era of history idolized by medieval Europe. This man could take the gladius of the barbarians and use it to conquer the world. That would be my suggestion on this painting. If you have any sort of ideas on why this painting shows this dual nature of English and Irish customs, and why a man whose questionable sort of qualities and attitudes towards the English and Irish, primarily the Irish, why he would use such a painting that would no doubt be viewed by all his peers, that he would use this to dress as an Irishman. Please feel free to comment below. I hope you've it's opened your eyes to maybe this image, and I hope you enjoyed the podcast. So see you soon.